As the world is watching Sweden with criticism or praise, let's see how life is in Sweden in fall 2021 in the midst of the pandemic. A cold country that warms up your heart by taking the best interests of their entire society as a whole into consideration and standing up for the human's right and freedom of choice, where most others have failed to do. For those of you who are new to this channel, this kind of video has nothing to do with the content of my channel, which is on a greener living, particularly in reducing plastic waste. But because we're going through such strange times, it is so hard to sit still and ignore what's happening to our world, as our politicians are fostering and defending a lot of unholistic ways of living and thinking, including stripping away a lot of our human rights and suppressing people. So that's why this is the third video I'm making on this topic, to share another perspective that is not very often seen in the mainstream media, especially when it comes to the Swedish strategy. As of end of September, beginning of October, everything's back to normal. There's no recommendations to stay and work from home. Dance clubs, sports events, all kinds of large gatherings are back to normal with no masking. This is almost unbelievable, isn't it? A country that has never done any lockdown or general mandatory masking is able to have life fully back to normal. Although highly recommended, vaccination is not mandatory, which means there's no such thing as a vaccine passport, at least at this point. So you're able to go wherever you need to go, including to busy dance clubs, and nobody will be asking for the proof of your vaccination. So for instance, if you read the Swedish public health guidelines, you see the tone of how things are recommended. I'll read one paragraph to you here. It says, you have responsibility to pay attention to symptoms. If you develop any symptoms, you should stay at home and get tested if you're not vaccinated and avoid seeing others. Adults who are not vaccinated are recommended to keep a distance from others. Avoid close contacts with people in high-risk groups or people aged 70 years and over. So again, you can see the tone of how things are recommended in such reasonable way, even for people who have chosen not to get vaccinated. So despite all the good that Sweden has done, yet again, a lot of mainstream media and people in general criticize Swedish strategy. Either way, I'm simply sharing some of the factors of what the Swedish authorities have taken into consideration despite all the pressure from the rest of the world, which is taking all factors of public health and the general well-being of the society into consideration, including thinking about the long-term damages that are going to be the ripple effects of all these harsh law enforcements that is going to be seen for years to come, which is also not counted for, by the way, when many people are still only concentrating on counting number of COVID cases. Now let's quickly touch base on some important points about the Swedish model. Has Sweden done this perfect? No. Could they have acted initially to save some of the lives of the elderly? Probably yes, and that's probably one of their major faults of the Swedish model, that they did not act initially. However, has any other countries done better than Sweden? Probably not, once we take all the factors into consideration. Should Sweden be compared to any other country? Not quite, because of the confounding variables that will take an effect. Sweden should be compared to its own over a certain period of time. Has the Swedish model failed despite having no lockdowns, no masking, and now being fully back to normal with the Delta variant? Many people can argue, no, it has not failed. Because once we look at the excess mortality rate, we can see that except for that initial spike that they had in May 2020, the excess mortality rate is now leveling off to average, and it may continue to go down if we look at it in the next few months or couple of years to come. So this makes us think that these lockdowns and harsh law enforcement perhaps were never the golden savior as we were told they are. Is Sweden pro-vaccination? Yes, they are. And although the majority of the adult populations are fully vaccinated, it was never forced or mandated. It was never at the cost of losing your freedom of choice or being blackmailed to losing your job and so on. And that may be the reason why a lot of people have already got vaccinated, because they have a higher level of trust in their government. Now, another thought about the logic of wearing masks. Some countries are allowing the vaccinated portion of the population to get together in large gatherings such as dance clubs, as long as they're showing their vaccine passport. Although we know that they can still transmit the disease despite being vaccinated. These same countries, however, are still masking their children in a small setting of the same group of people, their classroom, for hours a day. Children are one of the most victimized portion of the population during this pandemic, and they are also in a low-risk group and they have low transmission rate. So what is the logic in masking children, except for being all about politics? For more detailed discussion and explanation on the topics that I just mentioned, please see my other video. I'll have the link in the description below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please share them in the comments. Again, this is a very complex topic, and just like anything else, it's never black and white, which would mean that dealing with this very complex situation should also not be so black and white. Do you agree? Thank you for watching. If you like any of my videos, I would love to have you stay connected and be part of this community by subscribing to this channel. Thank you.